The next point I wanted to go into was you mentioned before that one of the major differences between the nature of God in Islam and the nature of God in Christianity is that you know your roles, and there's that sort of separated from the being and the omnipotent. Uh, in terms of Christianity, though, could I make the case, and tell me why you think I'm wrong here, that because of the historicity of Jesus Christ and because of the fact that he's one of the most recorded figures in history, and the fact that he had disciples who died for the fact that he performed these miracles, and they think that he's a divine person, that he's got this divinity about him, that that actually that gives more credence to the idea of Christianity, because there's actual evidence from history that suggests that there was a divine human being sent down from heaven to pass on the message of God.
Now, the question is, which historian who is not a Christian believes that Jesus resurrected? Now, I want to make a very important point here, because you are mentioning one of the most common, most popular arguments that Christians use for Christianity, which is the following, right? Historically, because I want to add very one important thing, is that Muslims don't believe Jesus died on the cross, right? So there's a fundamental difference here when it comes to the identity of Jesus, right? So they always use this argument. They say, okay, history records that Jesus died, right? Therefore, Muslims cannot be correct. That's a very common argument that the Christians, I would say, would be using, right? Or we say, look, history records the life of Jesus. There's a very strong historical case for Jesus, right? I will say the following, right? First, the Quran stipulates in chapter 4, verse 157, the Jews and Romans or anyone did not kill Jesus Christ, right? He was not killed. He was not crucified. But what the Quran states also is that the people did believe he was. So the people perceived it as if he was crucified. So it would make rational sense for history to record that Jesus was killed. So we do not have an issue first as Muslims to say that Jesus died, or sorry, history says that Jesus died, right? We don't have an issue with that, okay? That's the first thing I would say. But the question is, which historian who is not Christian says, I believe in the resurrection, right? Because the resurrection has no witnesses. The resurrection is not like the historicity of the death. And I will say the following, right? It is very natural for history to record that someone died because he's a human being. So it make absolute sense that there's consensus, because they always say there's consensus that Jesus died. Of course, history does not record miracles, right? Historians have to be objective in their observation. So what they have to say, okay, there's a human being, the human being died. But those same historians that they try to use as evidence, they do not agree that Jesus resurrected, that he resurrected. And if they did, they would be Christians, because they would believe in a miracle that took place, right? But they don't. That's the first thing. The second thing is, when you say Christians have history and people died for Jesus, etc., the earliest manuscripts that has the Bible, which the Bible has the story of Jesus and his disciples as well, like Acts of the Apostles, for example, what the apostles were doing. James is a full book of James, allegedly the brother of Jesus, and what he was doing. And then you have the four Gospels about the life of Jesus Christ, right? So you have all of those teachings. Those teachings, there is not a single manuscript from the first century. Carbon dated. We're talking about carbon dating here, physical, that you can show me, right? There's nothing from the second century. You have a card that is called P52, this big, right? This is what you have, right? And it does not have foundational beliefs, right? So the full manuscript that you have is the Codex Sinaiticus. That's the earliest. And that's the 350-ish, like the 4th century. Nearly 400 years after Jesus, you have something written that is supposed to be a copy of 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 something else. And then you've got different manuscripts, thousands of manuscripts, that every one of them disagrees with the other. If you got, for example, a textual criticism scholar, Bart Ehrman, he wrote different books about this. And this is his main field. He used to be Christian, now he's agnostic. He left Christianity, right? He said the differences are between the manuscripts is like the number of letters in the Bible. So count the number of letters, and this is the number of differences between manuscripts, right? So there is no history that is agreed upon when it comes to Christianity. There is nothing from the 1st or 2nd century to begin with that talks about Jesus Christ or his life, or the history of what he did. And the idea that history records he died, as I said, that's a very natural thing, that they will record any human being to die. They don't believe in miracles, but they will not record the miracle that he resurrected. They will not also record the miracle that what Muslims believe, which is the ascension, that Christians believe as well, that he ascended to heaven, right? They will not record that miracle too, but it is something that comes from proving your religion is true, and therefore you believe that based on proving your scriptures from God.
Okay. Very interesting. God, there's a lot to take in there. And I'm not the person to give a strong rebuttal to that, but like I said, I'd love to get you on and have a conversation with somebody who could.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that is the nature of God and the nature of the two religions.